Welcome back. Well, now we've got Ene Obi, who is a convener, Situation Room, and she's also the country director, Action Aid. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on the program today. Well, we had looked at the elections ahead of time, the last time, and then you were somewhat optimistic, cautiously optimistic. But then, ever since you said that there were allegations of vote buying, INEC officials having questions to answer. But much as we'll speak about that, on the whole, do you think that were they sufficient to perhaps raise questions as to substantial compliance with the electoral provisions?
Yeah, I think much as we're asking questions, we have to commend the efforts of INEC. It was not out of lack of efforts. Where there are blames, we give the blame. But the fact that election happened, on Saturday is quite commendable to all the actors and also the citizens for having the boldness and the courage to come out. Is highly commendable. We have to look at the different, actors when you're saying, okay, what level of achievement did you get? We had some concerns before the election. We had a lot of concerns about the PVCs that were not collected. The timeliness of the arrival of the PVC in Anambra State was a major concern for us. And I think a number of people were disenfranchised. But the turnout, we can see Anambra already had the lowest voting apathy in Nigeria. And then to operate in the region of fears, that heightened a lot of things. The attitude of the security personnel encouraged people to be able to stand out. And in the days of where you can say, this is a democracy, but in the past where even with the military regime, when we go on demonstration, the police and security agencies walk on the side and watch us experience and also claim our own rights in terms of the right to protest, the right freedom of movement, and being able to ask questions, demanding accountability from the government. But you are finding a tightening environment in a democratic setting. And so connecting it with this election, I can say, the performance was quite fair, the friendliness, the civility, but we're also having some minor disruptions somewhere. And I think those disruptions should be checked. It gives INEC the opportunity to look at when there is a polling booth, particular polling booths, they all have numbers. And so when you have issues, it is important that we record the issue. We know the polling unit, we know the police that were deployed there, the DIG operations is on ground, and the CP and all of them, they are on ground. So we can easily trace a misbehavior or mismanagement of the environment by any security setup. We saw the civil defense, and a whole set of, the security agencies. I think I think it's a fair, appraisal. In going out on Saturday morning, many people were cautious. People didn't know whether they should go out. Even when we, from Situation Room that morning, those who were on board at the meeting who are not in the local, because we had deployed to the 21 local government areas. And we were cautious about movement. One thing was engaging, those who are having car hire services, to go to different locations. Many of them declined. They said they were not going. The atmosphere of a fear that it was looming, So, but as the days went by, we saw the activities and the work of media. I want to really commend the media, for the work that they were able to do. Because when you see transmission from voters, from voting polling units, you know that you have to go out. Situation Room deployed a lot of, things. Even on ground, we're still taking decisions on mobilizing people. We had to go on a lot of adverts, both on the national scale and also the local. We had to go with local media on ground, multiplied our advert to encourage the Anambra to come out en masse and vote. So I think given the atmosphere of fear, those who had their own cards were able to come out. They were able to turn out. A number of them turned out. It's still going to be like, the last election, more than just about 400,000 voted the governor, which is a really, a big drop for democracy.
I know that. Yeah, pardon me. The last general elections, the chairman of INEC at the time, because when the election was postponed, and then he did say that we needed to have a conversation about election management in the country. And I don't think we've had that conversation. But does this make a case now in terms of how the logistics turned out, those who didn't want to go for fear of what may happen at the end of the day if they had participated? Does it make a case for unbundling some of the responsibilities of INEC such that we don't always have to keep talking about logistics and sounding like a broken record?
I think we can do better. We need to improve. You need to bring major stakeholders on board right from the beginning. When we came into Anambra before we started before the election itself, we had meetings with the security agencies. They made promises, and we are holding them responsible to those promises. And I think at the end of when the election is concluded, we need to have another conversation. The transport, where they had a major dropout, drop on logistics was the issue of transportation, transport workers. We need to go beyond going to hire people from the street.
Oh dear.
Okay, we'll try and reconnect. And so, well, some of the challenges that was posed. Ms. Anna, are you back now?
I'm still on.
Okay, go ahead, please. We lost you for a while.
Okay. I think there are a lot of confusions. We need to be able to come together, with all the stakeholders. And I was trying to say that the transport union need to be engaged. And you don't just engage with them at the local level. If the transport workers are on board and they're able to also connect with the security systems, connect with that management level, I think it is very, very important. You can see that before the election, there was a peace accord. So the National Peace Committee came on board with the Kuka Foundation to bring in all the politicians on board. We need to even invite, all civil society organizations were invited. Can we bring on board all the stakeholders so that their leaders, the leaders of these actors are involved from the beginning? It's not enough to just sign a bond with them or sign agreement with them and think that they are all going to come, because the fear is real. Even those that were engaging, it's a very difficult thing. But as the day went by, I think a lot of people will look back and say, oh, I wish. Some of the car hires we have, under normal circumstances, they will charge you they will charge you maybe 20,000 a day or 25,000. They charge double for them to risk their lives to go out, because there is no there's no duplication of life, and so the fear is real.
Well, madam, the issues around logistics that you have raised so far have been prominent on this program for about 1-2 weeks, when INEC began to talk about movement of materials, sensitive and non-sensitive materials, and all of that. But concerning that conversation that you said we need to have, we've been talking about having that conversation since 2019, and I'm wondering when that conversation is gonna come on. Justice Chamberlain has also asked. So the question now is, if we're going to have that conversation, what are the crucial things that we need to raise? Because the apprehension before elections, just as you said, is significant. The fear of moving around for election officials, for the people who are going to vote, the logistics, those concerns are very real. So in terms of having those conversations, and in order to reduce the level of palpitation, I dare use that word, before the elections, What are the conversations, what are the things that we have to talk about in order to lower the tension that usually prefaces our elections?
We had, you know, the peace accord, for example. The stakeholders, we needed to go beyond. There were conversations that ought to have been held. We had encouraged INEC because there was, INEC did a lot of advocacy before the elections. They brought in the political parties to Abuja. They brought in stakeholders to Abuja. There was a national stakeholders meeting with INEC, which was called by INEC. But there wasn't, you know, we encouraged them that at the state level, you bring all stakeholders together and let them be addressed. You know, there was the stakeholders that discussion that held was on a Thursday, and that was basically, you know, having it too late for me. When you want to hold it's not the stakeholders from outside Abuja or outside, outside Anambra. The stakeholders are within the religious leaders, for example. You needed, you know, the traditional rulers. The Igbo culture is very heavy on tradition. How much of them were engaged? But we have to also recognize the fact that from before this election, the tension was all over. You know, I think the level of fear, even in the local community, was something else. And if they had brought them together, they need to engage even peace accord within the locality itself. It's not enough to bring, it's okay, and it really helped the election with the coming of the National Peace Committee. But we needed to go more than having conversation with Ndigbo, you know, with themselves, the stakeholders within, bringing the traditional chiefs coming together. So within every environment where you're having off-cycle election, I think they should pay attention to that. But I can say that good thing that happened is that with the police, we're looking them eye to eye. What are you going to do? What are your men going to do? And proudly, they gave us the numbers that we needed to reach. If there was any violation, they gave us who to reach. But at the level of local environment, what are those conversations that we need to have? We are now holding the police responsible because if you told me this is what, Situation Room is holding the police, you know, the security agencies responsible. You promised this. This is at the end of it. So at the end of the election, we are still going to meet. You did well here. And what they said, if they are doing well, make the commendation. But if they are not doing well, also give them the incident reports. You know, this needs to come. So I think INEC again need to improve in that conversation the number of meetings they held with the relevant stakeholders before Anambra election. That needs to happen on the ground in the state where those conversations are as well. They need to add that on board. But
so speaking about,
we need to have a conversation.
Speaking about the police, when you spoke about vote buying, you said that there was, that happened, it played out during this election. So give us the scenario that you saw or that Situation Room noticed. Were there policemen on ground? Did they look the other way? What transpired?
In some of the police stations, I can say that vote buying is impossible because people were standing clear of the voting area and people were well-mannered and also they queued. But where you have a crowded environment, the police were on ground everywhere. We even saw the number of one particular police station. There were almost 40 policemen on ground in one location. And we were wondering why that number. I think the further deployment, the issue of even transportation to move the police from one place to the other. A few, deployment did not happen. And that conversation is something that needs to happen with the top level. But almost every polling unit that you went to, the police were there. On vote buying, where there is a shrouded, the police, in one particular place, I remember that the police stood clear and anybody that was moving close to any voter, they directed them, they told them to stay clear of that environment. That's what is expected of the police. Because we were promised that if there was vote buying anywhere and the police noticed the CP promised that those people will be arrested. But we're seeing a few cases where they looked aside, but the remarkable, and I will say the heroes, you know, in one particular unit, I will recommend, I look at them as my heroes because they rejected and chased the person who came out with money as the person was bringing out the money. They rejected immediately, and when the commotion started, the police looked that way and saw what was happening and drove and they pushed the guy and said, "You need to leave the place." They didn't make an arrest, but you know, that was the person was driven away. We expect more from the police. In order to tighten that arena, I think we go back to the drawing board and let the police, in terms of the orientation they give to the police force before the election. And so those are conversations that we're having. But we say tighten it further by ensuring that the police that are going to monitor elections, they are fully paid before they move. You know, they are fully paid their remunerations. Some of them acknowledge that they were paid. There were others that acknowledged that they were not paid. We don't want a 50-50 situation. We want a tight, you know, it's a matter of policy. It's a matter of guidelines that you have. You need to meet up with that. So we hope that going forward, the police will tidy up that. We are going to give them the feedback. They tell us again, we will monitor them because, you know, I think this election, however, is an improvement on what some of the things that have happened.
On the issue that you just raised now, madam, concerning, you know, the policeman, with the fellow that was chased away when he attempted to give people money. Shouldn't he have been arrested in order to find out where he's coming from and all of that? So as to maybe, because, I mean, the person who came definitely came for somebody, got money from someone to try to instigate some actions there. Shouldn't he have been arrested for further investigation and possibly, you know, eventually find out where the source is?
I think he should have been arrested immediately. He should have been arrested. What happened, we had so many of that happening. This was a guy that was giving them 5,000. There's a lot of poverty in the air. 5,000 naira, and these people rejected. But the police were there. We will be giving feedback, of course, to the DIG operations and you know, and the first PRO, because we all gathered, you know, and had that conversation. There was a huge meeting that was organized by the police, you know, and with the civil society and also the media, and we are expecting that they will live up to the expectations. But I think when you look at lessons, because it was not a massive, this is a. And, you know, more watertight than what we had in the past. If there was, we saw that some of the police stations were a bit crowded. You know, it's like at the final moment where they're supposed to queue and line up to go one by one, there was a bit, you know, of a crowd, which is not even supposed to happen because of COVID-19. COVID-19 protocols were not practiced. You know, the guidelines were not obeyed in many of the polling units. So even without COVID-19 protocol, people were supposed to line up one after the other, so that if that happens, it is difficult for somebody to walk and start giving them money, you know, and so it was a close-knit experience for some of them.
Some of the,
I think that, yeah.
Okay, some of the participants, even observers, had expressed their frustration and disappointment regarding the biometric voter accreditation system. So what is it that you'd like to see as a major improvement given the challenges that befell this election?
We can't be having problem with the beavers, for example. We cannot be having it because we are asking, we fought for the electronic transmission of results. Accreditation was done. You know, the beavers problem, when you mobilize people, if there was a heavier turnout of voters, there would have been so much disappointment, you know, because of the failure of some of the beavers. To have the location for almost 400 beavers having problem, you know, is a nightmare. And the technical capacity, what we know is that INEC has the capacity to be able to correct this. And so let them correct that and ensure that the beavers are working. I saw a lot of excitement for those whom they take their picture and they are, details come out immediately, it was an excitement. But so they need to get the beavers right. I think from the explanations we are getting from INEC is that the first batch of the beavers that they got had no problem, but the second batch, some of them were having technical issues. Good thing that I will say happened from the point of INEC on that was when we escalated. Each time we escalated that there was a beavers issue at one point, they were able to reach them and they corrected it.
Well, madam.
So that technical capacity, we need INEC to train massively, those who can handle the machines, not just handling when they have problems, because machines will have problems, but we need to be able to put it down.
Well, I just want to ask a question around the inclusivity of the election. How inclusive, in your opinion, was it? I noticed that one of the, when you were having that conversation with our political editor, Seun Okinbaloye, there was a polling booth that was elevated. So that's one of the things that makes me ask this question of you. How inclusive was the election for you, as good as we praise it to be?
Yeah. Yeah, INEC, the new guideline that was brought out, that people with disabilities should be given priority, pregnant women should be given priority, and elderly should be given. We saw that in practice. But very few of the polling booths were not, they did not accommodate the issue of RAM. A number of the primary schools or the environment we had, they had no RAM. And so there was a difficulty in terms of helping. But it was amazing when you see others, the citizens helping themselves, helping the elderly to make sure that they got up to a point. And the uniqueness of it was that where they were not able to climb, the INEC people was able to come to them, as you can see, with the elderly lady and a couple of others. But what we didn't see was a braille, meaning that many of those who were blind did not either come. We didn't see them making an attempt to vote, but from the report from our member, people with disability, they still are yet to confirm if they saw any braille. So we need to improve with that. But I think this was an improvement. Unlike, elderly will not want to come because they cannot stand for too long. They were accommodated here. And so I think we can improve upon it. We'll go back to the drawing table when we're having the meeting with INEC to let them know, to get the feedback, and we will be monitoring them at that level.
Do you see a situation where, maybe when the electronic voting bill is signed into law, do you see perhaps when the media, including the broadcast media, will be able to exit poll since the results will be the same across board?
I think it's interesting. It will be interesting to witness that. And what is happening here, like I stated earlier, before midnight, we already had almost all of more than 4,000 out of over 5,000 polling results already uploaded to INEC portal, and the portal is there. And I think, the media has done a great job in focusing on that. What we need to also focus is the promises that are made before. And then during, we will look at what is going on. And then after, we'll be able to look at what is coming on board. Signing into law or not, I'm the one, I'm of the opinion that we're even over-laboring the issue of signing on the issue of the Electoral Act. Of course, we fought for it, we struggled for it, but we need to look at the provisions of the Constitution. Are we not really overworking ourselves? The Constitution has already given INEC the right, the authority to organize and conduct elections. But we are stepping down and really putting so much energy. The umpire should be able to conduct the election. The National Assembly is a supervisory agency. Let them tell you what they are doing. Of course, they can explain to you what they have done or what they will do, but it is not for you to judge and start hand twisting, what the things that they do. Like in the earlier conversation of which I was watching keenly the discussion with Samson and Victor. And we are still pulling down on somebody who told you that he was forced to write a report. You are still even discussing it. That is something you should cancel right away. And those are the heroes. We're happy that not too much of that happened, but wherever it happened, now why is the police or whoever, the security agency that orchestrated that, why are they not arrested? This is what the police promised us. They said, when there is an event like that, when there is anything like that, let us know, immediately if they had escalated, because we're getting feelers from the different polling units. Whatever we heard, if we needed to call the police, we'll call the police, and they will give us an explanation of what is happening on ground. Why is that not happening? And so I think there is a lot of lessons that we're learning from here. We hope that by tomorrow's by-election, is something that they will look neatly. We want to watch how the beavers will walk on ground. We want to see what else is there, because we have enough security on ground to go to that place and make an example. Signing into law or not signing into law, I need to have their responsibilities, but they need to, of course, tidy it up, since they are in it already. Tidy it up. So we are grateful to Nigerians for the kind of.
We'll look forward to that as well.
Yeah.
We'll keep tabs and keep improving. That's the essence of the entire scheme. Thank you very much indeed for your time this morning. NOB is the convener of Situation Room.